I have someone who's asking me to elaborate on the relationships between inmates and employees in corrections. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I worked in corrections for a number of years, and I've worked with inmates for a considerable amount of time. There's a lot of there's a lot of interesting dynamics. With staff and inmates. I'll talk about myself first. When I worked with inmates, I was very firm with them, and I'm also very nosy. As a mental health clinician, and you have to be firm with them, but you also have to balance that with empathy as well. And so, my many years in working in corrections, I only had one inmate that I couldn't work with that was a sadist. And that's, I had a pretty tough caseload, but as a sadist with ASPD is very tough to work with and really probably shouldn't have been in a medium security prison. But I feel like I had a good rapport. I answered a lot of questions, but I was very firm with them and I was very nosy, so I always wanted to be involved. I need to know what you're doing, if you're getting high, if you're going to school, if you're going to work. I need to know. I'm going to call everybody. I need to know if you say you're going to the doctor, are you going, or are you trying to dip out and go somewhere? And I had a good enough rapport with inmates on my caseload, and even with the ones that I didn't, like their girlfriends or their partners or whatever you want to call it, they would come and tell me what's going on. So they kind of would just walk up to me on the yard and tell me, I had a lot of respect in that way, which is I guess that's a testament to my work. But also, when you have a lot of respect and you do your job, staff doesn't like it, so that can create a rift with people that aren't on the up and up. So with that being said, there were a lot of staff members. So I worked, with psych techs, RTs, nurses, doctors, teachers, correctional officers, and there was a lot of people that cross boundaries. Teachers are number one. We cannot keep a teacher at a facility. Teachers are usually walked off in handcuffs at a minimum of once a week for having sex or being inappropriate. So teachers are very quick to turn, and they don't care. They get downright freaky right in the classroom, and so the classroom is a place where a lot of mayhem goes down. So you really have to stay on top of inmates that are in school, but also just the teachers as well. Psych techs and nurses are number two. You've got a lot of them that get emotionally over involved. Nurses don't know their place, and a lot of times they wanted to get involved in my work. I don't get involved in your work, and you don't get involved in mine. If you do, it's going to be a problem for me. And when Dr. Jones doesn't really have problems, but if I have a problem, you just don't want a problem with me, because I got no issue with taking it up to your supervisor and doing what I need to do to get you, put you back in your place. But they become emotionally involved, and then they start doing things that they're not supposed to, bringing food and doing other things like that. Talking, becoming very overly familiar and sharing personal details and things like that. There are also people that are on the floor, which means that they can go door to door. They administer medications, or inmates come to them. I've had issues with psych techs and things like that, with people who watch inmates shower. So there are people that work there that are just as nasty and probably need to be on the other side of the gate and being sexually inappropriate. So they like to, cop a look and, make comments and things like that and be totally inappropriate. And also start relationships as well. I would say next would be correctional officers, very inappropriate. They have probably the most access to inmates. They're there managing the floor. So there was a lot of sex, a lot of bringing things in for inmates, so contraband. A lot of times they will utilize the trustee The trustee is usually a guy, a girl, a woman, or a guy that's been there for a long time that basically has free reign on the floor. So a lot of times the trustee, they're passing and doing things that they're not supposed to do, having sex with the trustee, bringing cell phones and food and all kinds of stuff for the trustee. There have been COs when I worked at the institution that have gotten pregnant by inmates and staff. So the other area where a lot of contraband and illegal activities was going on was the kitchen. Our kitchen would oftentimes have to be shut down because there would be, food is shipped in on trucks and things like that. And with shipments come things that you're not supposed to be doing. There was a lot of things that would go on in the kitchen that wasn't supposed to go on. There are psychologists, and psychologists have a number of my colleagues have been walked off too. I mean, people that come fresh out of school, fresh out of grad school, get walked out in handcuffs. Because inmates are always going to be inmates. Their job, they're doing their job. They're manipulating. They're trying to get what they can get, and they know who they can get that from. And they know that Dr. Jones is not giving them nothing, but a person fresh out of school, they're going to be bringing in phones and stuff. And fun fact, for anybody who's got a license, so nurses, psychologists, other mental health professionals, we have a board, and I don't know if they still do it because I don't know that I get one. I don't get one, but the board used to send out a newsletter every quarter, and I always refer to it as the back pages. And in the back pages of the newsletter, they have pictures and descriptions of infractions that licensed professionals commit. So if they lose their license, if they get DUIs and things like that, and boy, my colleagues would be on top of that. That would spread like wildfire. Look who's in the back pages today, but you could still go to a website and things like the board's website, but they usually send it out. But not only that, the institution will usually get notified if someone is arrested, and it's your job to also report that. Anybody who gets fingerprinted by the DOJ, their employer is usually going to get a notification when they do something that they're not supposed to do and they get arrested for it. There's a lot of people that have inappropriate relationships with inmates. Also, fun fact, and I've said this many times before, but inmates are considered vulnerable population, and they are considered property of the state. When someone is considered property of the state and a vulnerable population, they do not have the right to consent. So it does not matter how old that inmate is, how sexy they are to you, they do not have the right to consent for sex or anything else. And anybody who engages in sex with them while they are working at the institution, if they get caught and they're arrested for it, technically they're supposed to be charged as a sex offender. So that's a fun fact there for you guys to know. And there are some staff members that are disrespectful, and so they get stabbed. There are staff members, I think when inmates don't respect staff members, or they're not intimidated by the consequences, but usually it goes along hand in hand with disrespect. A lot of times inmates will expose their penis to somebody that they don't respect, or they'll masturbate to them, and that is supposed to be another charge. That doesn't always happen because a lot of staff, unfortunately, don't report it like they're supposed to, due to intimidation. And that is a big no-no. When you don't do that, inmates start to think that you like it, and they escalate in sexual deviancy. Hope that helps to answer your question. Thanks so much. One other thing that I'll mention is this also includes transgender inmates having relationships with staff. And during the summertime, transgender inmates will put on like Daisy Duke shows and things like